It's done. I have read Animal Farm. Incredible book, 10 out of 10. Warning now, this review will have spoilers. So, that out of the way. The last line of the book. It hits different, right? So let's just cover it right now. Creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. I listened to that in audiobook form, right? I was eating dinner, and I was finishing off the last chapter, and I was like listening to the audiobook for the last chapter and a half or so, right? It was really enjoyable. It made me able to multitask and focus more on the meaning behind the words than just trying to read it. Great. I recommend it. The audiobook I used will be in the description, and I will be playing that clip from it right now.
The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which.
It hits different when narrated by Arthur Lane. I screenshotted on my phone just because it was such a good audiobook. I'm going to recommend it to people. I had read most of it, and then I listened to the last chapter and a half on a audiobook format just to breeze through it a bit easier. So, a lot of thoughts. I'm still trying to collect them, but I want to do this while it's fresh in my head. Snowball. Let's start with that. I thought he'd come back in the story, rather than just being this looming threat, or looming threat. But at the end of the day, right, it was kind of more realistic that way, where the opposition, so to speak, was immediately driven away. God, I'm stuttering. That's how fast my brain's racing right now. The opposition gets driven away, and then is just demonized for the rest of the book, basically. And it was truly incredible to see how that was like all characterized in that way, I guess what I'm trying to say is, as the intro for this video should say, sometimes life imitates art, and I'm a Canadian. Let's start with that. I like watching American politics so I can laugh. But seeing how one side, no matter which side you're on, demonizes the other, it's truly incredible. And this book kind of warns against it. Now, this book has been treated as a cautionary tale against communism for a very long time. I don't think that's accurate. I think it is a warning in general. Because as much as we say communism's terrible, if you read the book, right, it's not communism at fault. It's used as a catalyst to gain power. It is used in a horrible way. Don't get me wrong. But it is also used to show an ideal world for the animals, right? So you have the main bad guy at the start, the Jones, like the Farmer Jones guy, Mr. Jones. Great song. Anyway, he's clearly a bad owner. He mistreats the animals. He underfeeds them. And communism through the animals is shown as the solution, equality, everyone getting food. But this is obviously only half the story. And at first it works out, things are great. The animals are getting along. They're safe once they drive Mr. Jones out. But there's a fight between the two political leaders. And after one side wins out, communism turns into dictatorship, turns into oppression while participating in capitalism. I mean, you can't make this up, right? And it goes through political assassinations, treatment. What I found most interesting and timely about this raid was healthcare. So here, I'll play the clip. I will play the clip that I recorded on my phone, and then we will see how I talk about that, right? So right, so this is going to be edited into the video at some point. I switched to the audiobook on YouTube just so I could multitask right now because I've been dealing with other stuff. And I was on the last couple chapters, so I figured, hey, what's the harm? And I just got to the part where they take Boxer away. I never expected Animal Farm to actually like make me feel really sad. But Boxer was such a enjoyable character, you know, just the dependable guy who's working harder than everyone, you know, the horse that's been through it all, and then they take him to make glue. I'm laughing because I don't know how else to like process it, but they killed Boxer, guys, and I wasn't ready for it. Like, I really, like, this is for what the book presents itself as. It's dark. It's really dark. And then to kill Boxer was like another level that I wasn't expecting. So this will be added to the review, and we'll see what happens. Oh my god. This is just a little update. Alright, so I know it's really soon to do another quick little update. Chapter 10, I believe, it goes, Boxer was forgotten, except by the few that knew him, or had known him. Oh my god. Like, all of the other stuff in this book, I was like, okay, fine. Alright, we can work with that. But not Boxer. Alright, just not Boxer. Snowball was chill, you know, he was fine, but politics. Boxer was just like a loyal guy that was dependable and there for everyone, and they're only the people that knew him, or I guess only the animals that knew him, remember? Like, at all? Like, he's not talked about or anything? Horrific. Sad. They kill Boxer, right? And Napoleon, the mean dictator pig, frames it as healthcare. He's like, he's going to the best vet. Boxer's going to be taken care of. Now, Boxer's this big, sturdy horse, super muscular, been loyal from the beginning, hardest worker. And it's framed as, oh, Boxer's going to get taken care of. We're going to make sure he's all right. We take care of our own. He's our people. And then he ends up getting turned into glue, is the implication. Given the current situation in America with that healthcare CEO, I just found that kind of ironic, right? Where it's like, yeah, we're getting him healthcare. And then it turns out that healthcare is murder. You know? That's all I'm going to say about that. But wow. Talk about timely. But anyways, I was reading the book, and as it goes on and on about just the actual, like, atrocities basically being committed slowly towards these animals, I'm like, huh, that's pretty interesting. Huh. This book didn't feel like it was just a warning against communism. It felt like a warning in general against authority. So, as a Canadian, food and housing is super expensive right now, right? It just is. And this book talks about that, and it's a huge reason for the uprising is, like, food and living conditions. They're the big two. And it was really telling to me that, like, on a deep level, I connected with that, right? And another thing that was telling, I'm going to move this keyboard because I don't like that glare it's causing. I keep doing that. I just gotta stop using the keyboard when I'm recording a video. Another thing that was telling for me was that I kept referring, when I was talking about this book to friends and family, to the animals as people. Because they're characterized so well, you forget you're reading about animals on a farm. You think, oh, this is just like a political story about like revolutionaries and stuff. It was almost Hamilton-esque. And it's animals on a farm. Literally, I mean, the title kind of gives that away. Masterful writing, all right? George Orwell's writing in this book, it's incredible. Like, to such a degree, I'm struggling to find the words to actually articulate how good it is. But characterization on, like, the level of Stephen King. Masterfully done, right? In, like, I think this was 1940 something? I don't actually know when it came out. Wow. I'll have to check that and edit it in somewhere over there. Yeah, there should be text saying when it came out. Anyway, truly an incredible read. And I think it will help me, at least, to be more conscious of propaganda. There's a pig in this book, right? There's lots of pigs in the book, named Squealer. I love the name choice. I love it. And he's the propaganda guy. So he talks endlessly about, you know, like how great their leader is. And no, this isn't actually what's happening. All right. When Boxer, my favorite character, the horse, gets taken away, it's shown that the carriage or whatever he's being put into, it has the name for the people that are slaughtering horses and turning them into glue and such, right, on it. And Squealer spins this yarn going on, and he talks about how, no, the vets bought that vehicle, and they just simply haven't repainted it yet. And all the animals are like, huh, that makes sense. And it goes on, and every time someone's suspicious of something, he would pipe up, he would shout and cheer for the masses. He's the one actually that coordinates the, I love this too. So the pigs are the ruling class, right? But there's the sheep, which sing their praises constantly. Very much on the nose. It's a little too obvious to be like, oh, well done. But I love it nonetheless. And Squealer, the propaganda guy, actually goes through and he has the sheep change their tune, literally, not just figuratively, literally, throughout the story, changing the song they sing. It goes from, this is like kind of the mantra that they sum up, animalism is what they called it, communism, into 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, I think it was. They change it to, at the very end, 4 legs good, 2 legs better. And he spends days drumming this into the sheep until they start singing it. The sheep walk on 4 legs, right? It's just how they are. And through the masterful propaganda of Squealer, they're completely indoctrinated into that way of thinking. Over a week. They're isolated. They're literally physically isolated, but like they're isolated, and then they're told something over and over and over again until they're singing it to the masses. Even when what was the worst thing was revealed, right? Like the worst thing, their enemy, was like revealed itself to be in plain sight the whole time. It's this whole big thing. They start singing the praises. And it's like, oh, that is the effect of propaganda. Incredible. Masterfully done. Poetic is like an understatement, I'd say. And then we get through the book. That's near the end, right? So, after the stereotypical evil, here they are, the 4 legs good, 2 legs better chant with the sheep and the pigs walking on their hindquarters, Benjamin breaks his rule for Clover, and it's actually adorable. In all of the darkness that's going on in the book, at least we have this. At least we have this tiny little victory where all hope's not lost, and like the one other stoic character, the mule or donkey, I can't remember which he is, breaks his rule to help the other horse. You know, there's actually three horses other than Clover that are all apparently very stupid and not really mentioned much. But anyway, he breaks his rule for Clover because she can't read the board anymore. And oh boy, it's getting real at the very end. I've got like 6 minutes left of the audiobook version, so thoughts are coming soon. But Napoleon, the pig that's opposite to Snowball, is stealing the good ideas from Snowball, discrediting him. Snowball starts as the opposition, but a brilliant leader who sees all animals as equal. He's the innovator, you know, he's a genius who's coming up with ideas. He is a war hero, or a battle hero in any case. And by the end of it, Napoleon's turned him into the enemy, who was a coward, and not just a coward, but worked for the enemy in the war that he was originally given a medal and seen as a hero in. He's turned into the villain who lurks in the shadows, right? And every time something goes wrong on the farm, Snowball's been here, I can tell. And all the animals start to believe it. They believe in this fake demon that is Snowball. They believe that he is in the shadows, destroying everything. But meanwhile, it's just life, or in some cases, Napoleon. Or it's the humans, because the humans are also evil in this book. Do with that what you will. Anyway, the pigs. They change the rules to fit their needs, and they use propaganda to make everyone believe it's always been that way. Good examples, right? It used to be, I can't remember the exact wording of the rule at first, but it was something along the lines of no animal shall have like human vices, and they then changed it to just no animal will consume alcohol or tobacco, and then it was no animal shall consume alcohol or tobacco in excess, right? And that's when the pigs turn into alcoholics, essentially. I say alcoholics. It didn't sound like physical measurements of the beer and stuff they were drinking was that much, but it went from never, this is the vice of man, to don't do these things, to don't do it too much. And it talks about how only the pigs are allowed to partake in alcohol, right? Which says, you know, oh, you don't do this too much, but only so that we're allowed to do this, and then they're not giving any, right? It was really clear from the start that the propaganda was working, and it was allowing them to do as they pleased to their benefit. The dogs, let's talk about the dogs. Brutal, like, kind of like the secret police or the SS, or just like, you know, Stalin's secret police, whatever you want to call them. Napoleon takes a bunch of puppies near the beginning of the book, and he hides them from the rest of the farm, and they forget about them. And he raises them to be extremely loyal, protective of him, fully believing his ideals. Dogs being powerful, loyal creatures, right? They're a lot more dangerous than a lot of farm animals, particularly like hens and geese and whatnot, right? The sheep, they're not really worried about. Dogs, though, with their jaws, right? They're powerful animals, especially compared to farm animals when it comes to fighting. He raises them, and they become enforcers. So, one day, they're having an argument about the windmill, which is the big goal for Snowball, to have a windmill that basically turns the farm into a paradise where animals work 3 days a week. They spend the rest of their time in luxury. And for some reason, Napoleon doesn't want the windmill. We learn later he wanted it, but he wanted the credit for it as well. So he gets the dogs, which no one knew where they were. No one really remembered them. When they're almost fully grown, and they've been fully indoctrinated, to drive Snowball out with violence. So it becomes this, like, almost a mini horror story where it's like they're chasing at him, they're almost getting him, and he gets driven out, and that's the last we actually get, that I can remember at least, of Snowball actually being present. And it was so genuinely, almost, I don't want to say like too disturbing, but it really was. Just the control that he had over the dogs, and the control that having the dogs had over everyone else. So it allowed him to completely take over with force and hostility. And eventually he takes the plans for the windmill, says they were mine all along, Snowball stole them. And they get to work and they're building the windmill. There's conflicts around the windmill for like a huge chunk of the book. But that was when things went to that breaking point, you know, when you're like, okay, there's some conflict here, Snowball and Napoleon, opposing leaders, they're political parties, but like, they coexist, and then ding, look at that, we have a dictatorship. And from there it goes from, so we start with animals living under Mr. Jones. They're free. They're gonna have a windmill, it'll help them. Snowball gets kicked out. Boom. Yeah. We lose so much of like the positive and the hope in that story, and it talks about throughout the book the animals still have hope that things are going to be good, you know, everyone's going to be okay. But they aren't, right? Like by the end of the book, they're not okay. It's a terrible tragedy what happens, but the oppression continues and it gets worse, and it talks about they're getting less food, they're getting less privileges, they're being oppressed. The songs that they sing at the start to signal rebellion get banned, even though this is supposed to be the rebellions in rule now. You know, they're the leaders, because it could incite another rebellion. And that's never explicitly stated, but it is heavily implied that songs of rebellion are banned in case another rebellion were to start, right? It's a really... This book's a tragedy as much as it is a warning. And I don't really know what I'm supposed to take away from it right now, because I get the emotions of like being connected to characters and hearing the suffering, but then I also get the message there's plural, because there's lots that you can take away from this book. Now, personally, what I took away was be aware of oppression, be aware of propaganda, and those that would incite oppression. Leaders, be aware of the signs of what can happen, right? So, media and other sources being like squished, opposition suddenly disappearing, the focus on like one central figure, not like, well, I guess a patriarch could kind of be considered, but I don't think that's the correct term. That's like, because patriarch is like the father of the family, kind of. But like a patriarch of the government, you know, like the father of a government suddenly being focused on. Like throughout the book, Napoleon becomes more and more celebrated, and like he's almost like a deity at the end. Like they're treating him like he's all powerful, a god. They talk, oh, we're able to enjoy this because of Napoleon, and so on, right? So if you've read this book, you'll probably be more aware of what to look out for. You know, it'll be like, this person seems a little too valued for their contributions. What have they actually done? And if opposition, even if you disagree with it, starts to be demonized to an extent that is, you know, suspicious, maybe you notice that more likely, right? Like, there's always going to be that us versus them mentality, unfortunately. We can't seem to get rid of that as, like, a society. But if we see that, and we think, maybe this is going a bit too far, it probably is. And hopefully reading this book will help you look out for that, right? Like, if you see someone and you're like, I completely disagree with your political opinion. Okay. But also, do you think every time something goes wrong, it's their fault? Right? Because then you're towing that line. And eventually it'll get to the point where bad things happen. This book talks about that expertly. And it's almost never, I should say, explicitly stated. But it's always there. And if you even slightly delve below the surface of the story, you see it. You see the messages, you see the undertones, you understand a large portion of this book. And I think that's brilliant. I think that it is more explicit in its motivations and its message than a lot of works are, but its story is still enjoyable, despite it being a tragedy. Like, in the purest sense, it's a tragic story. You know, there's small victories and triumphs. The overthrowing of Mr. Jones, the repelling of invading forces, the completion of the windmill, things that are celebrated, right? But then you have Snowball being kicked out, propaganda, Boxer dying. There's a full, like, chapter, it feels like it felt so long, of executions. Napoleon executes people that aligned with Snowball. Well, I say people, there I go again, saying people instead of animals. See, that's how real this story feels, right? But animals get executed for even having alignment with Snowball to such a degree. I believe it was like there was a pile of bodies by the end of it. And production gets picked up and picked up and picked up. And there is a strike basically held by the hens who don't want to lay more eggs because they can't physically do it. It's too hard on their bodies, and their eggs are being sold anyway. Their food is withheld. They hold out for about a week, and in that week, 8 or 9 of them die, and then the hens give up and go back to producing eggs because Napoleon has to make his money by selling them. But now, they're a week behind on food. A huge portion of them are dead, and they still have to hit an even higher quota. And they do it. They all do it. Every time that bar gets raised, they hit it. And they hit it. And that's what kills Boxer in the end. His body gives out, right? He's an older horse. He was supposed to retire, but they actually get rid of retirement for the animals. That's another thing under Napoleon's rule. They originally agreed on, when they took over from Mr. Jones, an age for each animal to retire and get to rest and graze. Napoleon basically just says, no, we're not doing that, you know. So Boxer keeps working, and eventually he falls over. And despite trying and trying, he couldn't keep going. So he gets killed. This is after he was shot. He had his leg damaged badly, and he was getting up there in years. This would be like if your grandfather, right, had his knee hit really badly, or like his calf was torn in the muscle, and then just loosely patched up. He was given in the book, Boxer doesn't actually take a day's rest or even 2 days rest like he should have. He just straight back to work. This would be like that. So a 70-year-old, let's say, just to be somewhat generous, gets their calf muscle torn up. And then the next day, they're out working in the plants or something. That's the equivalent, right? And that kills him, because eventually he can't. And when he can't, Napoleon doesn't value the 10 years. It's not actually 10 years. Boxer's 12 when he dies. 12, almost 13, I believe. But Napoleon doesn't value, call it 7. Call it the 7 years of service, which is a long time for an animal. Loyally dedicated to helping and focusing on the cause. At one point, earlier on in the book, Napoleon tried to kill a ton of animals and throw them out when he was doing the executions and stuff. He was in that whole horrible... Once that clock stops, I'll continue. Okay, so he's in that horrible, dictatorship phase, and, he's accusing everyone of being allied with Snowball. You're getting killed. So the dogs start, ripping hens, I believe it was, to shreds, and eventually the dogs head towards Boxer, the big, strong horse. He knocks one down with his hooves, and he pins it down, and he looks at Napoleon for approval after Napoleon was willing to let him die. He was going to be executed or thrown out because he was aligned with Snowball, despite him saying whatever Napoleon says goes. Napoleon does seem to be right all the time. He was listening to him, and everything. He was being a good, loyal soldier. And then Napoleon just changes his mind on a whim and says, "Let him go, Boxer." The dogs leave him alone, and Boxer keeps working for Napoleon. They were going to kill him. He stopped them without killing them, despite the fact he has been able to kill men in the story, like actual men, clocking them in the head, right? Horses are dangerous animals. They're beautiful, majestic, powerful, loyal, but they can kill us. Anyway, he just goes back to work. He doesn't complain. He's like, it was strange. People, like all the other animals are like, that was odd. Boxer's been your guy this whole time. He's been in your corner. But he doesn't complain, and he keeps going. And it was just that much more heartbreaking when they do decide to kill him. I think that this book is really, really a heartbreaking book at a lot of times. I also feel like this video is going to be real focused on Boxer, which just goes to show which animal was my favorite. I'm biased. Whatever. Anyway, at the end of the book, right, they've been going through, and there's been propaganda this whole time. The two neighboring farms are terrible. They're horrible. Napoleon, once he's able to walk on his hind legs and act like a human, starts talking to them in person, and they strike up a deal. And throughout that, the actual other farmers are talking about it, and they describe the farm to be, ideal. The animals on Animal Farm actually all get fed less and do more work than on the other farms. And the other farmers say, "This is an example we should follow. You're doing a great job, Napoleon. We're impressed. We're sorry we ever doubted you and the pigs." The animals end up being more oppressed than when they were under Mr. Jones. That's the end. That's the sad ending. We don't get justice at the end of the book. We get, they looked the same, basically, and then the end. So, to this day, those animals are still enslaved. Basically. Functionally enslaved. They're not. They're oppressed, and they're victims who are being controlled by a horrible ruler. They're technically never slaves, but, that's whatever. It's like indentured servitude, which is slavery. Anyway, it's just, there's no happy ending, right? We get a happy, rising action, I should say. Not even rising action. I guess it would be, so introduction, is it then rising action, climax, falling action, conclusion? In this case, I'd say it's introduction, immediate rise, and then it's kind of like a steady flow, and then another rising action, then a steady flow, and then a rising action, and then at the very end, it's almost like we just have a climax. It feels like there's not necessarily a falling action beyond the speeches of the men at the party in the farmhouse that are doing deals with Napoleon, because that was a little bit slower. But it felt like this thing was constantly ramping up, and it wasn't showing signs of stopping. It was truly as if, we were seeing the rise of a government, right? The rise of an oppressive force. But we don't see it fall. We see a government fall. We see two governments fall. We see a dictatorship with Mr. Jones fall. We see a two-party system fall with rise of a dictatorship, and then we just see that dictatorship succeed. Animal Farm is a brilliant book. George Orwell is a brilliant author. This book is incredible. It is sad. It made me feel a lot of things. It is a tragedy. It is a warning. It is a cautionary tale. I think everyone should probably give this a read once they hit 15. right? I wouldn't say children. I think there was in 1950 something. I think that was what I was thinking. There was like a cartoon done of it where people are like, this is disturbing, so kids probably can't handle this. It can be pretty bloody and violent, so I would say once you hit 15, it should be read. Because I have yet to find a story that was as like effective at like warning against oppression and like the pitfalls of dictatorships and communism or capitalism. I've yet to find something that has, on such a level as this, been like effective at making me truly think and observe my surroundings and the world around me, the state of governments around me, policies, everything, anything, it's just, give it a read. This isn't like the O.J. Simpson where it's like, oh, if you want to know about this, check it out. No, this is a 10 out of 10. Give it a read. It is beneficial to you. I don't really know how else to put that, right? Like, how would you close this video out? How would you? The story doesn't end. The animals don't get a happy ending. The conclusion of the book is almost not there. It is there, right? The book does end, obviously. It says the end, literally. However, it feels like there's more to be explored. It feels like there could be more of a story. It feels like we're not owed more, but I'd like to have the animals get out. I'd like to have them finally be free, be safe, be equal, in this book, right? In real life, it's like, I like burgers, whatever. But in this book, with the connection that George Orwell manages to have with, like, the reader and these animals, I want a happy ending. I want there to be a conclusion that is more satisfying. That's the only thing that I'd say gives this book, like, a knock against it. Is it feels like there should be a more satisfying conclusion. Maybe I'm naive and just used to a happy ending, but I really want there to be a happy ending here, and there just wasn't. It ends with the pigs and men toasting together while the other animals all sulk in the fields and go back to work, essentially. Knowing that not only are they now horribly oppressed again, but other animals were being treated better than they were by man, and now man is going to oppress them just as much. Bit of a downer, Bit of a, whoops, that's not cheerful. Bit of an oopsie daisy on the part of the animals that let Napoleon take over. But I guess that's the most realistic depiction. Oftentimes, we don't realize what's going on around us until it's too late. I think that's all from me. Once again, absolutely incredible read. I rate it highly. I think that everyone should give it a try. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. All of us are equal, but some of us are more equal than others. Just look at the manhunt for Luigi. I couldn't not say it. I'm sorry. I couldn't just not talk about that, right? But that's it. Just look at the manhunt for Luigi, folks. All of us are equal, but some of us are more equal than others. Thanks for watching.